All right, welcome, fight fans, to another episode of a very drunken and a very ill-advised episode of Before the Ballman Speaks, episode 25. So it's a celebration of sorts, a celebration in not breaking the grand tradition of coming out with a Before the Ballman Speaks episode after every single main event that the UFC puts on in 2015 since the inception of the show. Oh God, I'm your host as always, Andrew Lawrence. You can catch me on Twitter at the Clown Kid. Hit me up about anything regarding MMA, and I will be sure to answer your questions, interact with you, get into dumb arguments over seemingly minuscule differences of opinion. This is Before the Ballman Speaks, where we break down every UFC card immediately after every UFC card, except this time we're a little late, starting at 11 o'clock for a card that ended just after 10 p.m. Unfortunately, this being so close to the holidays, I had some people over, and I'm actually at a buddy's house, and we had some people over, and hosted quite an event, and just seemed like people stayed a little bit longer than is typical. My guest for the show, Nick Baldwin may or may not drop in. We shall see if he's given up already on the night. It is 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 hour after the show. But if anyone's out there and checking out the show, feel free to drop me a line on the DM, and you could be the guest on the show. If not, let's run down this card very quickly. Because as very evident by my current state, I am fading fast. Rafael dos Anjos in an absolutely crazy. I think that everyone, in the line indicated a very sharp lean towards Rafael, RDA in this fight, but I'm not sure that everyone expected a quick, clean finish in the first round against Cowboy Cerrone like that. Fantastic work from him. There was a lot of talk. After the new USADA testing, would he look deflated? I thought he looked like he was in immaculate shape. Would he cardio out? That was not an issue because of the fast finish. His power was there. His timing was there. In that first exchange, really, where he hit him with a counter shot, you saw Cowboy kind of react and go, "Oh shit." Rafael has serious power, and he's starting to come into it in a very serious way for 155 pounds. I still think that that's a Shark Tank of a division, and that there'll always be someone in there who takes it over. So we're not really going to see another Benson Henderson type, title reign where everyone holds the belt for multiple, different defenses. I think we're going to see, some quick exchanges of that 155-pound belt. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Rafael dos Anjos. He put himself in line for, he's got a 50-50 shot at winning the money fight, winning the biggest payday, or biggest supporting payday you can have in the UFC right now. So hats off to RDA for his fantastic finish, setting himself up for maybe the payday of his career. In the co-main event, we had almost an equally shocking KO, even if it wasn't as fast and as kind of poignant. We kind of saw the falling away in the swan song of Junior Dos Anjos. I did not expect to see Alistair Overeem get a KO victory over someone like Junior Dos Santos. Junior Dos Santos went, hard rounds with Cain Velasquez in 2 fights and 1 fight with, Stipe Miocic. Alistair Overeem's gone the distance with some, just lesser fighters. If we're going to be honest about it, a shop-worn Frank Mir, didn't finish that fight. This fight was very interesting. It was, a lot of respect on both sides of it. I think that both fighters realized that they weren't really susceptible to taking many shots, and that the first person to land some clean punches was going to put themselves in spot for a major victory. And the first person to land really flush, was Alistair. And then that follow-up, I forget if it was an uppercut or a cross, that just caught him really, really flush. And that spelt the end of it. Oh, and the fight before this, God, you know what? For the final fight of 2016, this was kind of a very fitting card because there's a lot of surprises. Um, and a lot of upsets in major spots. Nate Diaz got the upset as well over Michael Johnson in a fight where I thought he really, coasted. I almost scored every single. I think I did score every single round for him. Um, Michael Johnson kind of, in hindsight, seems like an ideal matchup for a fighter like Nate, who kind of exceeds and keeps a pace on people and throws in volume, especially in the later rounds, while in the earlier rounds lets you throw, kind of, picks you apart from the outside and tries to, frustrate you. The line was all out of whack on this fight. I made a bet on, Diaz. It ended up being, one of the smarter plays that I had. I probably should have put a lot more money on Nate. Because this stylistically, we saw with the Dariush fight that Johnson likes to take his foot off the pedal. So we had a real chance of, cashing that. Super happy with Nate Diaz and his performance. Just thought he used the jab well. It's so underutilized in MMA. Used his reach advantage really well, fought long. 8 shots, had a great beard, had the cardio, left to right movement. I thought his head, his head movement wasn't as great, but he seemed to be, walking down and finding angles on left and right. So, Nate Diaz, just another masterful performance. 3 just really high level fights in the main card of this, on Fox. And they tried for it again. I think the last, UFC card, they opened up the fight with a women's fight. I think it was Paige Van Zandt against Felice Herring. In that fight, they actually delivered because Paige Van Zandt put it on Felice Herring. In this fight, I thought that the action was much more tepid. So they weren't really kind of able to strike lightning twice with the female fight in the beginning of a UFC on Fox. But I really thought Ronda Marcos, for a girl who was fighting or making a lot of noise for wanting a fight, didn't have that great of a performance and was really out physicaled by this Carolina. I don't know, Kozłowski. Jeez, they get tough. These girls from the Soviet bloc, pronouncing their names. She looked really good though and really sharp. And this whole division is in such a mess. You're seeing such, it's not that girls are unskilled, but they're singularly skilled in the 155-pound division of the UFC. They have one skill set that they excel at, and can they add another thing into that skill set that makes them, a little bit more dangerous or able to, fight off other attacks. But yeah, I think that we really need like an equalizing and see like another year of 155 pounds, women's MMA, and so we can actually have a clear-cut idea of who's in the top 10. I think that the fighters on top 20 skewed our opinion on who the best fighters in the world are in this division. And until, we actually see fight night performances from a lot of girls across the world, from a lot of different fighting disciplines. Because right now, Muay Thai fighters who can, stuff a takedown, that you can dominate that 155-pound division. And that's that. That's what, the champion is now, Joanna. But there's going to be a more well-rounded set that beats her. When and how long that takes to develop is kind of what we'll see in 2016 at that weight class. Charles Oliveira, another upset. God, this is kind of the year of upsets in the UFC, and we had a bunch of them here. Myles Jury making his debut down at 145 pounds. A lot of people thought he looked really good at the weight class. I kind of thought that he looked a bit drawn out, and I really think that Charles Oliveira is a tough test at that, just like jumping 45, because you're getting such a jump in speed. When you're fighting a high-level 145er against, kind of the mid-level 155ers that Jury had success with for most of his career. Really, until he fought Cowboy, I wasn't too impressed with, any of the victories. You could say Takanori Gomi, and, I don't have to, I'm not revealing anything. I'm not, enlightening anyone by saying that the Takanori Gomi that Myles Jury beat wasn't the Takanori Gomi, of his prime. So, I thought this was a guy who had got some good matchups and found some good, success in the UFC by being in the right place at the right time. Um, Charles Oliveira, a real veteran guy, really savvy, finds that submission in the first round. Um, what can you say? Hats off to him. I'm not sure this actually does all that much from him in hindsight. Going into the fight, I thought that you'd say the fighter that had less to win from this fight was Jury, but overall, Du Bronx is the person that looked super impressive and takes a victory out of this. It really doesn't gain much, in the rankings of that 145-pound division. Keeping with the theme of upsets, Nate the Great Marquardt beat CB Dollaway. CB Dollaway, poor CB Dollaway. Just the fighting IQ has always been his Achilles heel. In these spots, whether they be the main event against a really high end Lyoto Machida, who he's supposed to lose to, or a guy like Nate Marquardt. He has him on the ropes and he has the finish in his hand. Can't make it happen. Just fell to pieces when he smelt the finish there. Gave up on his striking defense and just goes in for this wild looping left hook. And exposes himself, and Nate Marquardt, got another reprieve from the MMA gods here, and got another, a career extender. I don't think he should take it. I think he should ride off in the sunset with this one. But I don't want to mention it. Well, I do want to mention it. That's why I'm saying it. I was on, Half the Battle, Daniel Levy's show. And I told you, if there's any person who could beat, if there's a person who Nate Marquardt could beat at 185 pounds, who would you put on that list? You got to put 5 fighters. What are 5 name fighters who he beats? You're putting CB Dollaway on that list, and this proved kind of why. An unfortunate one for him. You almost feel for the guy. But and you don't want to see Nate continue his career. So it's actually kind of the worst outcome you could have had for this fight. Goodness, another upset before that too. We had Valentina Shevchenko beat Sarah Kaufman. Unfortunately for Sarah Kaufman, despite all she's done for women's MMA, and she's kind of a pioneer in the sport and has done a lot for it, the sport's passed her by, and she hasn't evolved technique-wise enough. And the problem is that there's athletes coming in who know as much technique as her, or know at least enough that their athleticism can overcome, the technique that they lack against, a person like Sarah Kaufman. I think there was a lot of lazy takedowns that Valentina went for and got. I think she muscled her way out of a couple of positions and took advantage of Sarah. No problem with the split decision going Valentina's way at all. I don't think that there's too much of an argument to be made that you couldn't score 2 rounds to Valentina there. Before that, another, I think, upset too. Tandem McCrory put it on, kind of the perennial favorite, Josh Saman here. Saman really has become a darling of the MMA world because he writes very good articles. He's a good personality. He's a very athletic dude and looks the part really well too. I don't know. I think that his kind of the ceiling that we saw for him is the ceiling that we saw now. A really scrappy, jiu-jitsu fighter, got ground game guy. That they're gonna eke it out against him. Like imagine a Josh Saman against. Think about like Jacare Souza, a really good example of someone who's a scrappy, ground fighter, grappler. I think that's where his disadvantage really lies. I don't think he had a great game plan for this fight. I think he could have kept it at distance and thrown his kicks and been really effective by keeping it at a distance game. But Tandem, was able to, get dirty with the fight, keep it inside a close clinch range, and really just dirty box him, and took over in that sense. a good word for Tandon McCrory. I think it would be really great for him to, keep a kind of. I know it's an evil word, but keep a gatekeeper role in the 185-pound division, because there's potential and there's people moving in and out of that, and that's a good role for him. He could even rattle off a couple wins and get himself, a name fight maybe too. Nik Lentz beat Danny Castillo. That was a pick'em fight. Pretty boring fight too, if you ask me. But the Carney seemed to have the cardio advantage. Seemed to hurt Castillo early in the first, just sap him of all of his strength. Danny was mouth breathing the rest of the last 2 rounds, and Nik Lentz got it going. It looks like Nik Lentz is back at 55 pounds. Looks like Danny Castillo's gone from the UFC, 4 straight losses, and I really can't blame it. Guy has all the athletic gifts, but doesn't seem to be able to string it together. Doesn't look like he's going to make anything really happen in that jam-packed division, so best to cut ties with him now. Danny can probably make some money, actually, on the lesser circuits, or maybe he's thinking of life after fighting, and thus the lackluster performances we've kind of seen in the last few. But good for Nik Lentz. Keeps him alive in a new and back up in his old division. I'd like to see him fight some other older names kind of in that 55-pound division. I think there's enough people there that you can you don't have to feed them to some hot young hot young angry studs coming through there. Oh, Jesus Christ, fuck. Cole Miller got poked in the fucking eye on the way to winning a fight. And Jim Alliers probably did it intentionally, and that was probably the best move that he ever did. Didn't get the official L on his record. Definitely isn't getting a win bonus for it, though. But smart move, Jim. I support cheating all the time, so Cole Miller winning a fight, yep, poke him in the eye. That'll stop him. Usman. This wrestler freak from Tough 21. Yep, got it done. He could wrestle a guy who couldn't wrestle, and did it for 2 rounds out of the 3 rounds of the fight. Learn how to strike, and maybe something will come about in that. But boring MMA. Vicente Lupe, got his technique on and choked out Hassan. Unexpected in my book, but I didn't really watch the fights before it, so whatever. And finally, Francis Nagno, whatever the hell this dude's name is, the French beast. Guy looked like an animal out there. Physique of a god. That god got it done with the second round uppercut KO. That was dope. Overall, a pretty fantastic card. It really stepped it up in the last couple fights. I grade on a curve. All the fights that happen at the end matter the most. So I give this card a B+ because I got drunk with all my boys and we had a great time. Sorry for this half-assed episode without a guest. Thank you for all the longtime supporters. God bless all the people out there. By the way, I'm the new host of MMA Junior Radio with Nick Baldwin. Hope he forgives me for bailing out him on the show. Hope all of you out there forgive me for bailing out on the show. But sometimes you got to get drunk with your boys and have a great fucking time. You know what I'm saying? Hope you guys enjoyed the fights. Hope you guys made some money. I did make some money, not all that much. But I made some money tonight, and hope the bettors out there did too. Peace out. Have a good night. One love.